In the news this week, health versus football. Are AFL games with crowds putting WA's hard work mitigating coronavirus at risk?
Putting lives back together, the program getting teens out of prison and into jobs.
On the rise, WA's unemployment up once again, now reaching a 26-year high.
And on Western Perspective, homelessness, the new program getting homeless people off the streets.
This is the Evening News with Ivan Lowe and Sarah Smith.
Good evening. A news poll conducted on our page this week asked the public if AFL games should go ahead here in WA, given the current COVID-19 situation. Majority of you voted against it, and AMA WA President Dr. Andrew Miller agreed, saying football should not take precedence over the health of our communities. Taylor Hannah has the exclusive reactions.
In our most recent news poll, 2,300 votes were cast, with 79% of voters responding no to AFL games with large crowds in WA. Our viewers commented football is a game, but our lives are not a sport, and if the borders are closed, they should be closed to everyone. AFL should not be any different.
Look, I'm not surprised that the West Australian public don't think the gamble of having a big crowd at the football at this stage with what's happening in Victoria is worth it, because what we're gambling with is actually people's businesses, people's health, aged care facilities, hospitals, healthcare workers. That's what we're gambling in order to enjoy one night of football. I really hope it's worth it for the government, and I really hope that it turns out in retrospect that our worries about there potentially being community spread here come to nothing.
AMA WA President Dr. Andrew Miller said we could host a grand final if we have no community spread here, but we still have to be cautious as we're at a very risky part of the pandemic. In another poll, our audience overwhelmingly rejected the AFL Grand Final being held in Perth. There are fears of potential community transmission and WA's COVID-19 situation escalating to the levels Victoria is currently facing.
I think your concerns are justified. I think that it's right to be paranoid about this disease because of what we see happening all around the world. It would be arrogant to think that the same thing could not happen in Western Australia. Thursday
night's AFL game went ahead at Optus Stadium with restricted crowd limits and social distancing measures.
But you want to make sure that it's done in any sort of large gathering, football or anything else, is done in a COVID-safe manner. And you want to see those restrictions that have been applied on other events, and when it comes to making sure there are social distancing measures and the like put in place as well at things like the footy.
Health Minister Roger Cook said he's not concerned, as with no community spread of the disease since April, WA has earned the right to large sporting events.
But we've made these decisions based on two things. One, the best medical advice available from the Chief Health Officer, but two, on the basis that Western Australians have done such a good job in eliminating the disease in terms of community transmission of the disease. So the West Australian public have done the hard yards, and we can go to the footy safely on the weekend. Look, we're not considering the grand final at this stage. It's many months away, and as you can tell, in a COVID-19 landscape, things change quickly. So at the moment, we're just focused upon keeping Western Australians safe and getting as many people back into the workplace as we can.
Taylor Hannah, WAMN News.
Following an 8-week trial, the National Suicide Prevention and Trauma Recovery Project's Assertive Outreach program got half the female inmates in Banksia Hill Prison out of detainment. With ongoing funding to work with the whole detention centre's population, Jerry Georgiatis is turning lives around. Helene Fung has this exclusive report.
A groundbreaking new prisoner rehabilitation program is turning around the lives of some of the toughest young offenders in the state. Jerry Georgiatis says his program halved the number of young women in detention at Banksia Hill.
We secured the release of through the Children's Court of every girl that we applied for, and we worked after working with them on the inside, then on the outside.
Following the successful trial, the project will receive funding to carry out the whole program to all 10 to 18-year-old boys and girls in Banksia Hill Juvenile Detention Centre to improve their lives.
Daily presence in their lives. We worked with them as if they were our own, and what they needed was love, support, nurture, validation. We believed in them till they believed in themselves. Some of them we've got through training to employment, some of them we've got into education, and we've strengthened their safety nets.
Political experts say these positive programs bring down crime rates by reducing reoffending.
There's this disconnect between prison reform and addressing law and order, and yet they are directly connected.
Prison reform is a difficult outcome to achieve, says Dr. Cook.
It generally takes an active politician or a very interested outside party that pushes and pushes for these sorts of programs.
Helene Fong, WAMN News.
Unemployment is up in WA once again, with the state recording the second highest jobless rate in the nation. WA's unemployment rose once again for June to 8.7% seasonally adjusted, second highest only to South Australia, jumping from 8.1% in May. Nationally, unemployment rose to 7.4%. The state government says the figures are confronting after reaching a 26-year high.
As we've warned, the Premier and I have continued to warn, confronting numbers, but we are seeing some encouraging signs around employment starting to grow again on the back of the easing of those economic restrictions across Western Australia.
The possibility of reactivating the disused Tier 3 regional rail system will be the subject of a meeting in late August, with proponents saying the trains will save lives and create jobs. When the lines were closed by the Barnett government in 2014, community outcry raised issues of road safety and increased freight costs. The meeting is set to go ahead on the 24th of August in the Coolin Recreational Centre from 1 p.m. to 5 p.m. and will address issues of rail and water.
What we're going to bring to the table is we're going to give it 100%, which means, and that means we've got to start to talk to the stakeholders. We've got to put forward a plan that's going to be economically viable. No one is suggesting a three-legged racehorse.
The Australian Christians Lobby has requested the City of Perth Council to reinstate the annual Christmas Nativity event. The City of Perth Commissioners decided to cancel the event, sparking a big reaction from the community, and instead putting on several concerts in Forest Chase. Peter Albetz, WA State Director of the Australian Christians Lobby, urges them to reconsider and simply move the event from Supreme Court Gardens to Forest Chase. He said this would achieve the Council's objective of supporting retailers in the CBD.
It's a multicultural crowd that comes, people of faith and no faith come. It's a really popular event, and I think it'll be much more popular than just having a few concerts in Forest Chase.
The United States continues to break coronavirus records with an astounding 68,000 new cases and 974 deaths in one day. Cases are particularly high in the southern and western states that pushed to end lockdown early. Florida is leading the country for new cases, closely followed by California and Texas. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump has refused to rule out more sanctions against China for their handling of the situation in Hong Kong. President Trump signed the Hong Kong Autonomy Act this week. The law allows him to impose sanctions on individuals and financial institutions involved in China's new national security law implementation.
A men's shed in Basildine is taking up the challenge of responsible water use with their new Waterwise Garden Showcase. With funding from the Water Corporation, the garden uses native plants and water-saving techniques, like mulching, to show the community that Waterwise doesn't mean boring. Adam says the garden has benefits to mental health as well.
A lot of the guys in there are on their own, all that sort of stuff. They come here for the company. Yeah, so it sort of, it starts the mood off right, because there's a lot of mental, sort of issues out there. There's nothing like it. I mean, I come from that direction and I swing around the corner and there's a welcoming garden, and it just triggers you off to be, sort of pretty cheerful and all that sort of stuff.
And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest news on our website and social media pages.
No matter where you're watching, please take care and have a pleasant evening.
Good night.